We have already transformed the way the world operates. And now, I believe we have a chance to do it all again. To be the great explorers of the next era.
The power to change the world.
Welcome all to the session on autonomous networks. So very excited for you to be here. Who of you was at the keynote this morning, just an hour ago? None of you. Sorry. What happened there is a lot of the CEOs talked about the exciting future of network, what we're going to connect, what we're going to enable. But we in the room know how hard it is, how much work it is to make things happen, to actually connect thousands of devices, to do mission critical ththings. So what we want to do in the next hour is really talk about the nuts and the bolts on how to make that network work and how to automate that network and go even beyond automating it to make it autonomous. And we have got great guests, we've got great speakers. We'll be starting out with a warm-up. Snowflake, which is the sponsor of this theme of connecting everything, will speak. And I want to ask on stage Phil Kippen to give us the introduction to autonomous networks.
Okay, how's everybody doing? Day one? It's what, roughly 11 o'clock in the morning? Things don't usually start this fast, huh? Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. Certainly, there's a lot going on at Mobile World Congress every year at the same time, right? There's amazing things that happen, and I think, certainly this year is going to be no different. So my name is Phil Kippen, and I lead our telecom industry vertical for Snowflake. And I bet many of you are asking, what is Snowflake here, leading a discussion around connecting everything? And we're going to talk a lot about that. Where we're going to start, though, is the transformation that's happening in the industry today, right? And this is what I'm most excited about. The proliferation of data, and certainly the value of data to service providers today, has the potential to really help them change the game. When you think about the data that a service provider has today, a telecom service provider, that data is everywhere from infrastructure data to subscriber insights data, but it's also data that comes from things, right? And I think if you look at the transformation that's happening as we start to connect things, connecting everything, right? We start to see more and more data. We're able to make more sense of that data, and certainly telecom service providers and enterprises alike are going to be able to leverage that data to really transform their businesses. Now, the world is already very connected, right? There's roughly, depending on which numbers you believe, there's roughly 70 billion or so devices that are connected all over the place, different types of devices. What this graphic actually shows you is these are real numbers based on our customers in 2023. Each dot that you see, and those dots are actually very small, the bigger ones you can see are made up of a number of different ones, but there's millions and millions and millions of dots, and each dot represents an endpoint, a data endpoint. Each line represents a relationship between endpoints where data is being shared between those two endpoints, right? So as you can see, connecting everything and certainly connecting these endpoints is obviously bringing more data. More data is helping to solve problems. And as we go and move through time, we start to see things change in a very different way. It's a really interesting way to look at it when you look at the relationship itself between the proliferation of data and then certainly those connected things. The one thing we do need to do is we need to focus on breaking down data silos, right? And so when I talk about data silos, I'm not just talking about silos within an organization, but also across the industry. So when we start connecting things, right, today there's a lot of connected things. Many of them are actually siloed in their own areas, right? So the goal now moving forward is how do we reach beyond just connecting things across silos, breaking down those barriers, right, and bringing data ultimately across orgs and business functions so that businesses can use it. And I think this is, it's an interesting concept when you start to look at how that affects what we see here. And what we see here is really an example of collaboration. So as we start to break down these data silos, we start to see an increase in collaboration. As we see an increase in collaboration, we start to see more things connected, right? More data flowing across the board. So when we look at, for instance, the future of data, it's going to be coming from these connected things, right? But these connected things are going to be crossing boundaries that today they currently necessarily aren't. And then at the end of the day, analytics is really what is going to change the game. So the convergence of AI, certainly with data, and then with collaboration, data collaboration, is really going to change the game for service providers. They're going to be able to do things like optimize operations. They're going to be able to do things, for instance, like connect their enterprise customers and share data between the two so that they can then work, even in the same industry, work on collaborating together to solve pain points, right? So as we start to shift from certainly connected things into breaking down the silos, into data collaboration, and then into AI, you could start to see how this chain of events is highly dependent on actually connecting everything. And that's where we start. That's why we're interested in connecting everything. It's because the more things that we connect, the more data we get flowing, the more collaboration we start to see across these boundaries. We're unsiloing that data, and the more usefulness and meaningful value we get from AI as we start to leverage AI to solve business problems for our telecom service providers and enterprises alike. We've got a data platform. We have a world-class set of analytics tools as well, and we're working really deep in AI to help change the game for service providers. So hopefully that gives you an idea with respect to why connecting everything is important to us. It's important because we connect things, we break down silos, we encourage that collaboration. That collaboration then goes to, AI is using that collaboration to solve main business problems. You can start to see how this chain of events, right, starts out with connecting everything. So with that said, I want to welcome everybody. Certainly, again, thank you for your time. I hope everybody has an amazing year this year. And let's go connect things, everybody. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Phil, for setting the stage on connecting everything. And we really want to connect everything, but we also know here in the room that connecting everything is difficult because we're going to talk about autonomous networks. But I work a lot with McKinsey, with my clients want to automate their networks. And they want to automate their networks for various reasons because they see more and more different devices coming up and they say, hey, how do I optimize my network for not just phones, but also cars, drones? What do I need to do? I also see clients saying, hey, my network is getting much, much more complex. I got more carriers, I got more base stations, I got more vendors, now I want to integrate Open RAN. How do I make things happen? And at the same time, things are more mission critical. And so what we see is if you look at mission critical networks, they cannot be down. And if they're going to go up, if you want to bring them up, they need to go up in 30 seconds after they go down, not in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour. And then, like we discussed in the keynote, we also want to reduce energy. And a lot of my client CTOs I work with are struggling because they're pinpoint automation, so they can bring a base station up faster. They can basically create energy savings. But one of my clients, for example, said, I want to shut 2 carriers down at night to save energy. Then later, one of the factories, they had video cameras on 5G installed, said, hey, my quality at night is worse. How do I optimize those networks? What do I need? And again, you do another solution. You bring another siloed, to use the word from Phil, solution in, and it actually becomes quite complicated. So that's why I'm actually very excited to discuss today with you, how do we move from just automation to being autonomous? How do we use AI and data to make the network more autonomous? And if we talk about McKinsey, when we talk about autonomous, we talk about three things. A network that can configure itself. So basically, like I said, when you change something, you're basically, for example, on the carriers to get better energy performance, it configures itself. But also self-healing. When a station goes down or we need to do maintenance on a station, it automatically goes up and also predicts future. And again, I see a lot of clients who have forms of self-healing, but they typically don't work together with self-configuring, and therefore you get these type of issues. And the last thing is self-organizing, to really think through that your network helps you to think through, where do I do my future investments? Where do I need to intervene? So that's when we look at an autonomous network. So I think the journey for most operators in the coming years is from pinpoint automation, scripts, doing things in silos, doing a little bit of this, to really doing it integrated, leveraging AI, leveraging this type of data platforms to really make it autonomous. And that journey is not easy. It requires capabilities, it requires a different culture. It also requires you to trust the machine, because sometimes you say, oh, what's going to happen? You need to trust the machine to make things done. And then if your CEO knocks on the head, why is things going wrong? You have to blame the machine, which is never comfortable. So what we want to do today, we have 4 great guests. We're going to talk about people who are working in the field to discuss this. So I just want to welcome on stage Christina Rodi-Gress. She is the VP of Wireless Access at Intel. Hand of applause. I also want to invite Brandon Larson. He's the SVP of Cloud, AI, and IMS for Mavenir. And I also want to put, we have an operator, that's very important because they do it practically. So Janika is actually from Hillandis from Telenor. She's the EVP and the head of the Telenor infrastructure. And last but not least, a very exciting company actually, Rakuten. So Rahul actually is here, the OSS president from Rakuten Symphony in India. He's, we looked a lot at his company over the last years, what's happening there, so very exciting. So maybe starting, like I said, with Janika, because you're the operator in the panel, and Janika, if you look at, we have, like I said, we spoke a lot of automation already over the last years. So what happened in your networks, and why do you think now is the time for an autonomous network? What's different now while at work?
Thank you for the question. We are really excited, and we are excited of several reasons. One is that this new technology can enable us to handle more complexity in a more efficient manner. Secondly, it helps us to reach our ambitious ESG targets. And thirdly, it makes us able to build new services on top. And if I can elaborate a bit on these issues. Firstly, we see the complexity as already been described. We see 4G, we see 5G, we see cloud, AI, open APIs, and be able to sort of put this together for an increased customer experience and reduced operating cost. We see that this technology enables us to do that. When it comes to ESG, EU talks about twin transition. They talk about the digital transition and the green transition going hand in hand and be independent of each other. To me, I get really motivated by that because it means that what we work in, everybody, it's part of the solution. And it's part of what we need in the future low-emission world. At the same time, we use energy, and you alluded on it already. All activities require energy. So what we do in Telenor, we secure renewable energy by purchasing long-term power agreements on renewable energy. But we also look at energy efficiency. How can we improve the energy efficiency? And here, autonomous networks is a really good tool to do so. And I can talk about more on that later. On the service part, it's of course having an autonomous network with the right requirements for the customer, it's easier to build services on top of that. For instance, what we are working on is we have a service center having millions of IoT solutions connected to the network. But then we do need an autonomy in the network, so we are sure that we have the right requirements that the customer needs.
Very exciting, a very big challenge also to make that happen over time. So, Brendan, you work with operators a lot, and what do you see the big shifts they need to make this actually happen, these autonomous networks?
Well, I would say in one word, AI. I think a lot of operators from what we've seen in the market have gone a long way with automation. So they're deploying Kubernetes, we're seeing them develop GitOps models, workflow engines, a lot of cloud native technologies, but what that affords an operator to do is do things like software installs, update configurations, capacity expansions, and things like that. And they're able to do that faster, less effort, less human error, but ultimately the operation result is still the same, right? They've upgraded a network, did a configuration, but with AI, we're really talking about taking operations to a different level, going above and beyond what just the operational personnel can handle. So for example, if you apply state-of-the-art AI/ML, and Phil mentioned it, to all this rich telco data, we can mine a lot of insight out of that telco data. The machine learning can understand the behavior at that network at a deeper level than an ops person ever could. We can even understand the network and what's happening at a device level. And so if you look and say, well, how do we apply AI/ML to solving problems? I mean, this could be used to improve quality of experience for an end customer, whether it be improve the coverage, connectivity, mobility. We talked about resource efficiency, right? Energy efficiency being one, spectral efficiency being another, and to do these things, you just have to be smarter about how we implement this in the network, or even given SLAs to a specific device, right? Machine learning can say, hey, for that device, I'm gonna give it these network resources, not impact the resources around it. And we can even learn usage patterns of individual devices and upsell services, right? Hey, we see that you use the services this way. Let's recommend a plan. I mean, Amazon, everybody else does it. When you go into the shopping cart, they recommend or upsell you. We can do that in telco with AI/ML. So, if we bring more AI/ML into the autonomous networks or the telco operating ecosystem in general, I just think there's a lot more we can do with it, and we're really missing the boat if we don't bring AI, just like every other industry.
Quick follow-up question. Do they have the skills? What type of new skills do telcos need to make this AI happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're all very telco-centric, telco engineers. We think a very certain way. And when we started getting into AI/ML and we brought in data scientists, boy, there was a clash of cultures, right? They just approach problems a different way. And the skill sets you really need to have in data science is, first you have to have people that understand how to process data. So data engineering, data science, that's taking that raw telco data and transforming it into something that a machine learning algorithm can understand. And in fact, that's a very important piece of the business. About probably 80 to 85% of the effort is spent in processing that data to get the performance we need. And the second is just understanding AI/ML algorithms themselves, right? It's not ChatGPT. We don't plug a network into a large language model and everything magically works. There's all these different algorithms, and you have to have the right solution for the right problem. So for example, we'll use random forest for causation models. We'll take recurrent neural networks with long short-term memory, use that for forecasting to predict things happening in the future, or we'll use deep Q reinforcement learning to give the network an objective to hit. And the algorithm engineers will take those algorithms, they'll apply it to the problem, they'll tune the hyperparameters, maybe tune the error loss function, but they do it for a telco problem. So you've got to take that data science skill, you've got to take that algorithm skill, and now we have to blend it with the telco knowledge because you're solving telco problems. That's actually the hard part. Us getting our data scientists with our telco guys and not have them talking past each other all day, that's actually a lot of the challenge. But when we do it, it's amazing the results they can produce.
Very excited. So we see Telenor saying, hey, there's a lot of potential there to manage the networks. You say you need the data science and the data side. I just want to move to Christina and say, hey, when I speak a lot of operators, they're worried about the performance, especially when it's a more heterogeneous environment. I know Intel is working a lot on the performance of these elements. So can you talk a little bit around, is the performance, especially when we talk about Open RAN and these kind of systems, ready to do this kind of cool things Brandon is describing?
Performance is absolutely ready for Open RAN. It's an easy answer. And it's not me saying it, it's the operators that have deployed saying it. Performance, check. No question about it. If you look at, and I'll give you some data points, specific data points, you look at, for example, Verizon. Verizon has deployed by now more than 15,000 virtual cell sites. And they have said it very clear, we will not be doing this if we wouldn't be at equal or better KPIs than what we had before. Another example, for example, Vodafone also deploying at scale commercially, just like Verizon, and they just finished, they're doing this after they finished their trial, and the result for the trials, again, for the majority of the measurements, their KPIs are equal or better than the legacy that they are replacing, and that goes by for 4G and 5G success call rates or call success rates, goes for upload speed, download speed. So performance is absolutely there. And I think what is important here is the fact that we have been able, we're going through a massive network transformation, industry transformation, but what is important is that we have been able to do this, we have been able to open the interfaces to bring a software-defined network where you can virtualize your entire workload without jeopardizing, without compromising KPIs. And that's fundamental in this journey. The other thing, of course, that is important here, because it's not performance. It's, as we all know, the requirements in the RAN network are very, very stringent. So you don't talk about performance, you have to talk about performance per watt, right? And the power consumption that goes with that. And we're doing a lot of investment in the roadmap and in the technology also to bring that into the benefits of an open RAN. I'll give you, for example, I wanna give you again some specific data points. Last year, right here in NWC 2023, we launched a new CPU, our 4th generation of Intel Xeon Scalable processor with VRAM Boost. And what that device allows you is that you can have that software-defined network architecture with that CPU underneath that architecture, and you can run your entire workload in that CPU without any external components. And what you can do with that is you double the performance from previous generation, double the capacity, but also with a 20% of reduction of power consumption.
Yeah, but that's the point of Janica. So you really want to make sure you also get the energy right. You're basically saying the new next generation, even the open system can match the performance of...
Absolutely, and this is something, by the way, that Verizon with Samsung has already done a commercial data session on it, and resulting again in the significant gains in performance and efficiency.
Very exciting. I think Raul was dying to get in on the conversation. Raul, basically, we talked a little bit about what the operator's perspective, we talked about the data, we talked about the performance and the energy. You, of course, have worked with operators that have implemented this kind of networks, and of autonomous networks, and of course you need a kind of an implementation framework. So can you talk a little bit around how to think about the implementation and frameworks you need to use to basically make it happen?
By the way, automation is not the technology problem, it's the culture problem. It is how we separate or decouple what from how. How is easy now? With generative AI, how is simple? What is the challenge? And what we saw in Rakuten when we were doing our network first time, there were no playbooks, no cheat books. The cloud native network never existed. Open RAN was never taken to public. And we had no choice. So the culture was, we have to get it done, and we'll get it done, and there was no other choice than to do via automation. And the same challenge I think the future networks are facing now. In the future, think about what is the future of connectivity? What is the future of telecom? Who's the future customer? How they're going to use the future network is how we should start with. What? And I think the what is very simple. If you think about the use cases like you were mentioning earlier, drone. Drone company wants to fly train drones on the runtime and say, I'm going to travel from point A to point B. A network, are you ready? I don't think the answer is there yet. And how do they interact with the network? I'm going to fly 10 drones from point A to point B now, and probably the quality of service I demand is 10 Gbps, plus the jitter, plus the latency, but the packet loss. And how the network would adapt to that is the problem. And how we do that is probably the intent has to be converted into action. The action is the orchestration. and then orchestration is needed to configure each of the element. Let's say a slice. Let's say even the quality of service. Let's say a new APN configuration. Let's say a different diff serve for the network. And then how do you assure that? To say then the drone is flying, it will not crash. The network will support you. I think if we start thinking about all those things together, is what we will drive the future network autonomous. And the use cases like energy saving, resource optimization, all become part of it. I think what we are missing as telecom is what? What needs to be sorted out before we start solving the technology problems? And when you think about what, you define use cases. Data becomes critical. Yeah. If you don't have the data, you cannot drive the intent into actions because you'll still be stuck with product catalogs, the static ones, which needs to be pre-configured. A drone use case, a smart car use case, a connected device use case, the future of connectivity when you are having the AI in the mobile would not be solved with the current operating system and the networks, and there's no other way than automation.
So you see actually revenue upside coming from autonomous networks, so you think it will enable revenue generation for operators?
Yes. Yeah. So if you think about the revenue generation now, I think it will become a rev share model between the new use cases and the networks. Same example, if a drone company wants to fly, they can bid. They don't have to have a static eSIM connected to a network. They say, network operator A, B, C, what are you going to charge me today, right now? And they can share a rev share to say, yeah, I'm going to charge you X, because you're going to fly in the busy area, which will have surge just like Uber. And if you are able to do that right now, I think the monetization revenue problem will just disappear for the operators, because then there'll be people, use cases coming into network, because, as I said, network is the backbone. Connectivity is what is needed. There is zero use case today which can be solved without every phone, every application. And the strange part, every application is a unicorn, but the networks are suffering. So as I said, it's the culture, it's the mindset, not the technology.
Just want to get a quick live check from Janika. So you hear this. So what is your reaction? So do you see the upside?
Of course, we see great upsides. And when this works, we can concentrate on putting services on top, to say it very simple. And of course, on top line, we can use this new technology to improve operations. There's a lot of things to do there, in making things more autonomous, improving the way we operate, improving the way we maintain, improving the way we surveil our sites, for instance. So there's a huge opportunities there. And then services on top. What we are working on now, very carefully in Telenor, is security as a service, to add that on top of the connectivity. As long as the customers have the required network capabilities, it's very sort of, can I say, exciting to work on the services on top. So, and to you, there is so many interesting use cases to look into now. Within agriculture, I come from Norway, so there we do a lot of fish farming. Looking into, Telenor look into how can we help the fish farming industry on this, to add services. Autonomous net, within transport, there's a lot of use cases to look into, which will increase our top line, which will increase the customer experience, and it's really interesting.
Yes, that's in the room. So who believes this can create top line for operators? Just raise your hands. I'm on this camp, but I would love to see either a lot of shy people, a lot of skepticism. And the rest who all have their arm down are not believing there will be any revenue. Come on, guys. You pay a lot of money for the ticket, so you can better participate. Otherwise, I keep on asking you guys. So who believes you can affect your revenue in the room? Very skeptical crowd here. So you see that. So we have to do a little bit more work to convince. Or they're still asleep. So we talked a little bit around what's needed. Culture comes up, energy came up. Just to inspire the people here who are still a bit skeptical, I just want to do a rapid fire round to basically say, hey, in the last 6-7 months, what is the most exciting use case you see? So maybe 40, 50 seconds, starting from here to go there. So Christina, what is the most exciting autonomous case you've seen over the last 6 months?
Easy. Because we have a software-defined network and a virtualized network, we have seen operators swapping radios and open interfaces. We have been seeing operators swapping radios and software on a weekend. More than 1,000 sites on a weekend. And that you can do that because of the software upgradability, because it's the software nature of the network, of the virtualized network. That you couldn't do that with a traditional network.
Do you think that's an applause word, guys? Come on, a little bit. Yeah. What's yours?
Well, mine is, I'm going to go back to enable. Like Raul said, there's so many use cases and revenue potential, but I think a lot of people like, well, how are the networks going to respond to it? And one of the things about autonomous actions is how we're going to make all these actions on the network and not break it. So one of the things we've seen, and this is really exciting, is we're able to use Gen AI to effectively deepfake a network. And that deepfake effectively becomes a digital twin. So before AI takes action on the network, we can do an offline validation. Because what we've seen, and we've started deploying AI ML networks, operations guys are scared to death to let AI ML take over the network. So if we're able to do things like visualization and give them a digital twin and said, hey, we can run this offline, make sure nothing breaks before we deploy it, I think that's going to be key to be able to get the network where it needs to be to do the use cases you're talking about.
Agree. Exciting enough for an applause? Yeah, I guess. Jannica.
Yeah. In Telenor, we have about 250 test cases.
Wow.
So it's a lot of things going on. My favorite, if I can say so, is on energy efficiency. It's how we can use this new technology to, dependent on the traffic on our systems, we can turn equipment on and off. Mm-hmm. And that ticks all the boxes because it reduces our OPEX, our operating cost. It improves, it helps the environment because we'll use less energy, and it also increases the customer experience because they get cheaper services. So I love the idea of using this new technology to improve our energy efficiency, because energy consumption is one of our challenges.
I still think exciting. Raul.
So strange I have to be the last one and all the use cases. I think for us, like I said, it's exciting to have the software upgraded overnight because of the software-defined network. It's exciting to have a lot of mobs being automated because it's possible now to spin out a network and create a digital twin or a carve-out software-defined lab. Great to do energy efficiency because it's more flexible now. But the use case which I love the most is now, how do you have a fresh grad out of the college run the operations for you as the same guy with the 20 years experience, right? The AI can make that happen. Automation can make that happen. The guy now can come, or the lady, can come and have the same learning. The guy is doing right now in our operation, say, how do I manage a Kubernetes clusters in Rakuten mobile network? And if you want to generate a code can be generated. If you want to understand the architecture of the network, that is available. So he doesn't have to wait for all these years to spend in Rakuten Mobile's network to learn about it, learn about the specificity, learn about the architecture, learn about how the IP was designed. So for me, that's the most powerful thing which I've seen. I've seen a guy who just walked out of college probably have the same understanding as me for the networks.
I think you get less of an applause for the slightly older audience here, but it's still fine. So we see exciting things.
It's probably a bit annoying for the guy who's been there for 20 years.
Yeah, that's why I expected less of an applause here. So we hear excitement around energy, we see excitement around digital twins, we see excitement around culture and less skill needed to run networks. That's pretty cool. I just want to move on and go a little bit deeper. So for people who are not too nerdy, then this is where you need to leave the room. We want to talk about RAN. So basically, there was a survey, I see some people leaving, so sorry, I scared you off. But 60% of the operators said they want to do something in RAN around autonomy. And I just want to talk a little around, Christina, I know Intel is, as you already alluded to with Verizon, is working a lot around autonomy in the RAN. Can you talk a little bit, how is Intel looking at that? What's the framework you want to apply to make that happen?
For the AI, RAN, AI on the RAN? Yes. Well, again, we absolutely see AI everywhere, right? In the future, AI, and we are creating the technology to be able to use AI in all the network, end-to-end, everywhere in the world, and especially, or part of that in the RAN. We talk about what all the things that we can do from the autonomous part of the network, what can be possible, things like network configuration, things like autonomous network configuration, traffic steering, spectrum efficiency, all kind of predictive maintenance that you mentioned in your talk, to network slicing. We're talking about services and ways to monetize, and you can have SLA per customer backed up by AI capabilities. So absolutely a critical part. In order to do that, we're doing multiple things. One important thing in the RAN that I want to mention is RAN, no matter what, always going to have these stringent requirements of performance per watt. And the power is important. You cannot consume unlimited amount of power in a cell tower, obviously, or anywhere that you have deployed a RAN. So it's important that you are able to, that you don't have to add additional components, that you can run your workload, both the RAN and the AI workload, within your CPU. And that's why we are investing in the one that I mentioned before, the 4th generation that already exists today, that is available today, has AI built in. The next, the future generation that we are announcing precisely here in Mobile World Congress 2024, we're announcing the next or the future gen, codename Granite Rapid D. And Granite Rapid D is going to bring additional, of course, performance and efficiency, and it's going to have new features, new architectures, but also additional built-in AI acceleration. And what we're trying to do is to say, hey, you can have your network fully virtualized, open interfaces, but importantly also, you're going to be able to run your entire workload, the RAN and the AI, in the CPU. You don't need an external component. You don't need anything extra there consuming power. And that's critical for the space. The other thing that we're doing, and I mentioned this really quick, we're also announcing the early availability of what we're calling Intel vRAN AI Development Kit. And this is a development kit that will allow our customers and operators and RAN vendors to build, train, optimize, and deploy AI models specific to the RAN use cases. All that built on the Intel AI frameworks and software libraries. So a lot is coming, and again, the technology is here, and it's going to continue evolving. One important thing when you are in a server CPU architecture is that as Intel, you can, everything that you do today, you're going to be able to port it generation over generation from day one. So that's a tremendous advantage and leverage to the investment that you're doing today.
So a lot of new capabilities coming to bear, both in the hardware and the software you're bringing. Yannicka, because telcos cannot do everything at the same time. So if you look at your business case, of all the things you've heard, what is driving the business case to do autonomy in the RAN?
So it's for us, RAN is linked to quite high OPEX, and you need quite high skill on your the people who work on this. By using the new technology, we can, and making it more autonomous, we can free resources to work on service adding products. So we actually, it's a good business case to do so. And also, if we all make the data available, it sort of enables us to work with partners in a different way. So for us, this is a good business to make it automate.
So it's the cost saving on the operations side to be reinvested in services and data.
Yes.
Raul, anything to add on this one?
So, funny part on the RAN is, when we started, it was people in RAN are so fond of red, green, yellow KPIs that they think that's the life, right? When we started and said, okay, they're going to be an infrastructure layer, they're going to be an OS layer, they're going to be a cloud layer, and then you're going to have VMs or CNF, and then the application will come, and then only you'll be able to see the KPIs. It's a nightmare for them. We don't understand, this is not our problem, right? But when we're talking about all the software part of it, Open RAN, it comes with a lot of complexity. It's not easy to do it right. So deploying it, automation, it's key. It's very important, otherwise you'll make mistakes. The second part of thing is, then you have this vertical stack. Obviously, it brings the flexibility, auto-healing. It's not easy. You auto-heal on the same node, you restart, you deploy on the new node, or you manage the TCO. All those components which comes with day 2 actions are very important to figure out. I think, like I said, there's no other way. If you can automate that, you can figure out the MOPS and SOPs. Technology is there to make it happen. Now, it's obviously about the CapEx, OpEx. It's about the cultural transformation, but it's also about that, do you not want to do this? Why not, right? I mean, if the technology is there, you are shifting to a software-defined network already, you're talking about Open RAN, then why you are sticking around with the old ways of doing things? It's very important to build that, the moonshot goal, the motto in the organization to say, this is how we'll operate. And that's why the definition of autonomous network is very important. Right now, it's a buzzword. And we all agree that
That's
we
why
want
we're
to. Yeah. I'm a product manager, so I'm very focused on making things happen in the production. So when we measure things at production. So it's the step in the right direction because we all are talking. We all are believing in it now more than ever. I think I was proposing it to a friend of mine to say every 2 years in MWC we should come back and say, okay, what did we achieve in last 2 years? To talk about only that. So I guess the important part is it's the only way out. It's the only way out to become who we should be, the technologists, the organization.
But I want to push you a little bit because there's a lot of things that need to happen. But the question for me is, what's the business case? Because telcos, as we all know in the room, their money is not flowing everywhere. So the real question is, can we make the business case fast? Because it requires data scientists, it requires vendors, it requires a lot of work. So in your mind, what is the 2 or 3 things really driving the business case? I heard Jannica talking about the savings to reinvest, but what is really making the business case?
Both. The CapEx part, because you don't have to change hardware. Example, you can turn on 4G, 5G on the same. You are future-proof. The B part is OpEx. You free up the resources. Your network is running, self-healing, self-aware, self-maintaining. You don't need people to keep monitoring. You probably need 1/10 of the people's staff now. Right? And also preparing yourself for the future because then you can invest in something else to figure out monetization use case. The important part with the monetization use case of the future is the dynamicity, time to market. And if you lose that time to market, you're going to lose the opportunity of monetization. And that's where the hyperscalers are so great because they say the cloud is always available. It's infinite. Come any day, any time, you'll get the resources. That's how the telecom networks have to be. So all 3 together is what the automation should deliver, and there's huge potential on the business case.
I just want to move to Brandon because Rahul, you alluded to something very interesting, is to say, hey, you need to look at it integrated. Because most operators I talk with are focused very much on the RAN, but if you look at slicing, quality of demand, open gateway, it also, of course, hits the core. So how do you think about that RAN versus core? Can you do it separate? Do you need to do it integrated? What is your perspective on this?
My perspective is, and go back to what Rahul talked about, is that if you're going to generate revenue, you got to deliver the service end to end, right? You can't have the bottleneck in the RAN or the core. And there's really 2 aspects, I think, when we're talking about slicing or quality of demand to deliver a premium service, which you could charge for. One aspect is harmonizing the operations between the RAN and the core. And I see a lot of potential in using cloud technology. So Kubernetes, standard way to deploy, scale, manage workloads across RAN and core. Evolving that with GitOps so you can do declarative configuration updates. And then if you have a PaaS layer in cloud, you have a common telemetry framework, so you got visibility of the end-to-end service. But that's just a means. That's how you can manage the operations of the network. Then the big part is, well, how do you deliver these differentiated services on demand, which means real time? So whether you're flying a drone or maybe somebody's got a media broadcast, they need a certain level of performance at a location for a specific time, and then you got these requests coming in all over the network, and you have to serve them to make money in real time, right? And so to service those requests, you have to manage that service within that local part of the network at that time. And you may have to reconfigure something, steer traffic away from there, scale out, right? But you got to do that and not break all the services around it, and you have to do without breaking the bank. And then it's what we talked about from a resource perspective to make the business case.
How many people and hands you have?
Yeah, and so I think they had that chart Phil showed about all that complexity and connectivity. The only way you're going to manage that is with AI. So I think a lot of part about truly being able to offer these differentiated services, real-time, on-demand, and it can't be a static slicing profile. I don't believe in that at all. I believe it's got to be AI to manage that complexity real time based on what's happening on the ground at that location.
Yep.
I think for the last question, I just want to move a bit to Christina. We talked a lot about mobile here. Now, of course, it's also fixed. And anybody in the room doing also fixed? People didn't sleep. Oh, the 2 people not sleeping yet, so that's good. So what is your perspective on fixed? Is this transformation of autonomous network very different in fixed than in mobile, or you think it's very similar?
I think it's at the end of the day is having a network that has a common platform and the same type of architecture end to end. So I'm going to go back to, we need a software-defined network, end-to-end, virtualized, that allows you, and I'm going to go back to what we have talked back here and why this is important. Another reason for this is that allow you to bring innovation at the speed of software. So if you have a network that is software-based, you can always be upgrading that software with new innovation, including AI, as it progresses and evolves through the time. So that's having that common platform end-to-end in all aspects.
Yannick, any perspective on the difference between fixed and mobile? Because you,
Pardon?
Do you have any perspective on the difference between fixed and mobile? Are you doing the same in Telenor between fixed and mobile on autonomy or not?
I'm head of infrastructure in the Nordics in Telenor, and there's both fixed and mobile. I think on a generic level, it's much the same. It's I think we can use the same way of thinking because it's all about innovation. It's all about technology. It's all about working together. It's all about using new technology. No, I think there's a lot of commonalities. Yes. Mm.
I think we're getting a little bit to the end. So what I would like to ask the panelists to say, what is the advice you have? Because there are people here in the room who might embark on the journey of autonomy or deploying more AI in the network. And what is the advice you want to give? And I got your feedback rule, so you want to start this time, I'm starting at your side. So you can...
No, I said in the beginning, it's like separate the what from how and define what. What is the future for the organization? What is the future for you? What is the future for connectivity? What use case you want to solve? If you can define that use case, we say in the product management, if you have defined the problem perfectly, you have solved half of it already, right? So if you can define that, the technology exists. Christian already said, we have the AI, we talked about it, Phil talked about it. I think doing is easier now, defining and how do you gonna give it as a service to your end user and assure that service, whether it is real time, whether it is provision, self-provision, pre-provision, all those hacks are available with the operators, right? The possibilities are there. We are waiting, I don't know for what, but today we actually can do this in production. We can do this for any customer which is available. And I'm very sure the ecosystem around, with the kind of access that people have with their smartphones now, with the application, with the use cases, everyone will jump on it. And they'll say, yes, I want to partner with you if you are able to give me this service, end-to-end assured.
Yeah. Yes, you alluded on the business case, understanding the business case. And I think that's one of the key issues here, in addition to what you are saying on the cultural aspect. So understanding the business case and bringing that forward is important.
So really making sure you know the business case before you go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Innovation. Innovation, from my perspective, I've been in the business so long, I know innovation, the way we do innovation now is different from what we used to do. Before we used to spend, this is a project, come back in 3 years and deliver. We can't work like that anymore. We have to test, innovate and test all the time, very rapidly, very different way of mindset.
Fail fast.
Yes. Back to the mindset. Yeah. And I think it's also important to mention that innovation is also in how we work together.
Yeah.
Because I strongly believe in collaboration and working together. There's a lot of innovative force in that. Also, I think it's important that we standardize the data so we make it available. If we don't make it available, we can't innovate on it. And the last thing I want to mention, leadership. We need top focus from leadership on all levels to do this, because it is, as you say, it's a cultural issue. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to follow their lead a little bit because, when we talk about what we want to do, when we talk about innovation, we're talking about mindset. I love the mindset one because when I talk a lot about AI, and I bring AI guys in the room, they have a different way of looking at how to solve the problem. They look at what data is that value in, and how do I extract that data to meet the business case? So to be able to achieve those, what I would give advice on is you got to build that skill set. You've got to bring in data scientists. You've got to work with partners in the industry that are in AI. You've got to develop that culture so that, I even talk to my data science guys. I go, solve the problem without writing a line of code.
Yeah.
I want to grab the data, figure out what machine learning algorithm can solve the problem, right? So what do we want to do from innovation? What do we solve it? I say without code.
Yeah.
Don't do it the old telco way. Right, but that really is a different mindset, and it really starts with bringing those data scientists in, working with AI partners, and thinking about the problem a different way.
Forget about we are telcos. We're solving the problem.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
So
yes.
I always tell them, I always say, if I take a telco engineer and I bring them out into a parking lot with a bunch of cars and I go, I need a car, they'll run to the auto parts store, start building a car in the parking lot. I go, why don't we just use that one right there?
Exactly.
That's their mentality.
Exactly.
I go, just modify that. So it really is, I always tell them, that's the challenge I give them. No code. Solve the problem without code. AI, ML, and data. That's all I want. And they will come up with it.
I just want to make sure we give the last 2 minutes to Christina, last advice.
And no, this is fantastic because that's the good thing about being the last one. You can build upon your fantastic feedback. But I think everybody knows what I'm going to say because I think not intentionally somehow every question you asked me led me to the same answer. What do we need to do? We need to transform the network to a software-defined network, virtualized open network, because that's going to make possible everything that you guys have been saying, including the innovation, because then we can innovate at the pace of software, because then we can have your 20 years old and you're not 20 years old doing innovation, all these brilliant minds in the industry, creating services, creating application, applying AI, bringing the data scientists, but you need to have that network, virtualized network on a server architecture, common platform, end-to-end that can unleash the future, basically.
Very exciting. Personally, I want to add from the work we're doing is that phasing is also important because there's so much coming at you. So really make a plan on how, because like all the people here on the panel are saying, there's a lot of exciting opportunities. There's only so much management bandwidth. So how do you really create a transformation case around it? I love Jannika's point around where's the money. So have a business case in mind, and then also build those skills, because I think that not every organization can handle AI from day one. So I just want to thank all of you for being here, for being our audience. Thanks to the panelists for an exciting conversation. And I'm going to give you 28 seconds back for a busy day, and I wish you a great time at MWC 2024.